Changer. Pieces of the Sky Ripper had surfaced. Or so a scholar in the mountains had told him. Surely the weapon that banished the lost gods could defeat the Emperor. Also, a temple had risen out of empty desert. The Emperor had brought the Sky Ripper pieces up out of ancient burial by his obscene rituals. Could this be where the Iblis stone was hidden? Someone better get it before he does, thought Renato. And also, his old friend Lapino needed rescuing. Of course, Renato had a pretty strong suspicion that Lapino had betrayed the rebellion. But could Renato really leave an old friend to the Ravens?
Так, давайте третий вариант.
The island was windswept desert. No one went there except ostriches and ostrich hunters. The Iblis stone. It sounded ominous. It sounded powerful. If the Emperor was searching for it, it must be dangerous. And so, Bernardo went ostrich hunting.
Охота настроился. Интересно. Другие враги будут?
Every child
Опять
could sing
ворона.
verses about the Sky Ripper, but ancient codices held hints of other things. A stone that ate souls, a ruby that drank blood, a jewel only a righteous man could give away. Were all these things the Iblis stone? Long hidden in a buried temple? Another ancient item that was only resurfacing now? Drawn up from the deeps by the Emperor's horrific rituals?
Блин, мы уже насобирали тот фиолетовый меч.
Renato had heard stories of a dungeon where chests were filled with potions and weapons. Fairy tales.
Этого новых не нашли, да? Нет, не нашли. Двенадцать. Станция ветра. Чё он такой дорогой?
Renato distrusted doors that opened automatically, especially after being buried for millennia. Was this some sort of trap?
Твою налево. Долбаный взрывник.
He really wasn't making a dent in those shields.
А, это щит, который не пробивается. Твою налево. Ну ладно. Теперь я точно набью. Да? Да ну. Твою налево. Нет. не набил.
The ravens were already here, cawing in frustration. They were still searching for a way in. Good. Then he hadn't come too late. I'd hoped his mother wasn't watching.
Давайте это замедление возьмем.
Every day he was getting better and better.
Да-то, конечно.
What dreams may come, he thought. Then he found out.
Да,
Those flames really bring out your eyes.
да. Я на массе на...
If only it's some kind of magic ice sword.
Иди камень, тебя избрали для этой важнейшей задачи, но ты способен выполнять приказы, не задавая вопросов. Слушай скептиков. Отличное подтверждение твоей высокой готовности и показатели теста на интеллект. Прими за честь, что я твой император. Нарочно избрал тебя для этой миссии. В точности следуй инструкциям, путешествуй только с напарником, не разглядывай гравировки на стенах. Не потеряй герметичную коробку. Когда найдешь камень, немедленно положи его в коробку и запечатай ее. Слышишь голос в голове, не слушай, запомни, храм населен призраком. Буквально. Это старинный храм, посвященный древнему злому большинству. Там практиковались кровавые жертвоприношения. Неудивительно, что его заселили призраки. Не слушай голос в своей голове, запомни, привидения не способны тебя ранить, но они способны тебя запутать. Если услышишь слово, прими снотворное. Голос. Если встретишь другого солдата с камнем, он будет не в герметичной коробке, Незамедлительно брызни на него усыпляющим газом. Найди камень, положи его в коробку, запечатай на самого, найди камень.
A road less traveled. This could be fun. If it wasn't fatal, that is.
Туда нельзя, ясно.
No one could beat Bernardo at hot potato.
Да я же нажал в ту сторону. Прям в секунду надо. Неужели?
Once you try it, you're hooked.
Блин, одно не хватает. О, зато теперь можно самоцвет поставить. Редкая добыча. Что это за редкая добыча? Камешки, что ли? Надо вот это один раз выучить, и это. Надо 2 очка. Блин, нам было их тратить.
Truth was, Bernardo really liked the sound his sword made in the air.
Как туда пройти? Опять этим рывком, наверное.
The Ravens at least could not get past this point. Obviously, the temple builders knew how to deal with tomb raiders.
О, последний. Место мы можем скрафтить.
Take a leap of faith, said the inscription.
Бой.
It was a stone of the purest blackness. It reflected no light, like a void made solid. Nervous, he picked it up.
А, теперь
said
на
that?
безумном месте.
It was the stone, eager, thirsty. Kill the Emperor's daughter. You, Emperor. That seemed tempting and terribly wrong. Zenobia was the Emperor's greatest general and a potent witch. But they had been close once, and Renato wasn't sure he really wanted to be Emperor. Why not capture the core of Sky Ripper instead? It was the eye of a lost god torn out by the transcendent Emperor to power his greatest weapon. It's the core, said the stone anxiously. Give me death, and I will give you the power to do what you want.
Что если мы возьмем ядро и этот камень, короче, станем
The stone
супер
bothered
злыми.
him. He hated being told what to do. Wasn't that why he joined the rebellion? Wasn't that why he'd refused to be a soldier? He'd agreed to come on board only if he could freelance. The stone felt a bit clingy. The sage Calaveras had told him where to find the Sky Ripper, a weapon capable of challenging the gods. Even without its armature, the core would still possess great power. He would go there. The moment he landed the Farfarer, Renato had a rare feeling of regret. It's not too late, he thought. He could turn around and sail for Zenobia's island. He frowned. Wait a minute. He didn't want to kill Zenobia, did he? Sure, technically she was the enemy, but they'd been at Sword Fu school together. They'd never been lovers, but somehow they'd been closer. She'd told him every secret about herself, except the biggest one, that she was the Emperor's daughter. No, kill Zenobia, whispered the stone, before it's too late.
Он туда или... Куда, я не понимаю. Сейчас опять можем пропустить.
He felt like Tarzan.
Да. Хорошо, портового возврата есть.
There was something sour in the air. Like the earth had ruptured over something that had been fermenting for a very long time. You know, ore is pretty heavy to carry. You know what's not? A new sword.
Новый меч, конечно. Я хочу...
Where did that go to? It was all coming back to him. The stone hadn't lied about what it could do for him. With each raven he cut down, he felt a jolt of power flowing into his arm. "You're weak," whispered the stone. "The core will kill you." "Are you afraid of it?" "No, don't be ridiculous," it chuckled. But it's unstable. It will poison you if someone just carry it, and if you try to use it, it will explode catastrophically. Bernardo did not trust rocks that talked in his head. He went onwards.
Welcome to Earth, Bernardo told the corpses. It was something he'd seen in a play once.
As he approached the core, the stone became hysterical. "No, it's too much power. We'll rip a hole in space and time."
He had a sudden vision of plunging his gauntlet into the core and dying in anguish. That wasn't his vision, was it? The stone had sent him its darkest fears, hadn't it? He had a sudden impulse to do exactly that. He raised his right fist and plunged it into the core. There was a rush of light. He thought he could hear the stone screaming. And then he passed out.
When Renato came to, the core was gone. But the Iblis stone was no longer black, but glowing with a blue light. And it was silent. "I can't hear you," he sang out, and "Yoo-hoo!" It didn't answer. "Ha!" he said. He had defeated the demonic gem with the power of his mind. He felt invincible. It was time to attack the Imperial outpost on the Nexus. Take the battle to the enemy. But among the huge crystals, there was also an observatory. A wise man would probably ask the scientists exactly what he had first. How wise was he?
Спросим совет.
As the Farfarer made its way toward the Nexus, Bernardo could see tiny sparks in the blackness that was the Iblis stone, as if somewhere within it, the core was still spitting out energy, which the Iblis stone sucked in hungrily.
You'd think the stone would want this kind of power, wouldn't it? Thought Renato. Well, the scientists would explain it all. See? He'd trusted his gut, and it had worked out. That's what it meant to be a hero. To ignore the naysayers and the oddmakers, and do what you knew was right, and have it turn out to be the right thing. Well, he wasn't worried. Once he got to the observatory, the scientist toads could explain it. Then he could carry the war into the enemy's camp and destroy them all. Oh dear, he was getting a little bloodthirsty, wasn't he?
3. Ну, хоть через простых можно.
He was practically sure he'd find something useful in one of these things.
Так, нам туда или сюда? Да, походу.
What else could you hook?
Сейчас сначала тут заберем.
This was much easier than free climbing. Да. Да.
Boy, someone has spent a lot of money for a graduation present.
Сопротивляемость. Им. Догмат о трансцендентном императоре, последнем божестве, попиравшем небо. Известен нам со школьной скамьи. Он якобы изгнал злобных богов древности и даровал нам само время. Но под силу ли одному человеку, сколь бы ни был он божественен, сотворить нечто столь замысловатое, как время? У меня есть одна теория. Я полагаю, что время — это не дар, а проклятие. Я убежден, что законы мироздания раскачиваются словно маятник между порядком и хаосом. Трансцендентный император покончил с хаосом и положил начало эпохи, в которой мы живем. Эпохи причин и следствий, факта и логики. Время просто гобелен, на котором проявляются эти законы, а оно порождение спутника порядка, энтропии. Но в эпоху хаоса, во времена древних богов, восприятие перевешивает факты. Эмоции способны формировать миры, а время не действует более. Эпоха порядка завершается, и я просто способствую неизбежному. Энтропия повреждена, путы судьбы разорваны, близится конец времени, и я принимаю его с распростертыми объятиями. Они сбили комнату. Разбиваем кристаллики, потому что у них вроде
Bernardo
тоже
had
мышь.
never felt better in his life. Normally, a battle would wear him down and he would need a night's sleep. Now he felt like he could go all night and all day. He felt like people were cheering him on, and he could practically hear their applause as he slew one raven after another. The Imperial fleet was closing in on the rebels, forcing them to come out and fight. Bernardo was itching to bring the fight to the enemy. He had to remind himself not to be too reckless. From the mystical East could make time itself slow for you.
Новый мечик. Работает.
Get over here!
Непонятно, как она работает. Ну ладно.
This chest was filled with old concert t-shirts. And something useful.
Тут помимо того, что я создал, у меня еще 15. Надо было еще улучшать его, что ли? О, тут теперь наконец-то эта лаборатория цел.
The toads at the observatory measured the stone with their occult devices. I fed it the core of Sky Ripper, explained Renato. No more Vive Palan souls. But the core is not an unlimited energy source, said one toad. Another said, there's a feedback loop, you see, which could overload the stone. The stone doesn't actually feed on souls, claimed a third, but on pain of killing another sentient being. If you can truly be at peace with yourself, it would not overload. This was all very confusing. At peace? Yes, the mountains were peaceful and quiet, but he now had the power to turn the tides. He should report to the Rebellion Council and prepare for the decisive battle.
Давайте будем
One
искать.
thing he understood from all the Toad arguments. Maybe the stone did not feed on blood, or souls, or rage. It fed on empathy. It fed on the pain he felt when he put an end to another being's existence. even if that other being was a raven intent on killing him. If he could find peace, then he could use the power of the Ibla Stone without being taken over by its evil. The mountains. He would go to the mountains. He could find peace there. Unfortunately, the mountains were not empty. There were ravens everywhere. No matter. He had to fight, yes, but he didn't have to be angry. Parry, dodge, slash, and breathe. Yes, focus on the rhythm, the dance of it, not on the blood or the raven's core as they died. Ah, it was working. He wasn't feeling those dark jolts of eldritch energy. He wasn't feeding the Iblis Stone. Well, they really needed to redecorate anyway. The stone was still silent. His mind was his own, and his heart too. He bore them no ill will, these ravens. They were doing their job. They were expressing their nature. Dance, whirl, parry, jab, and weave. It was all so simple, wasn't it? Something was missing. He didn't feel truly at peace. Wait. Was he this near where Calaveras lived? The sage would help him figure it all out. Renato was remembering all his old tricks, and some new ones. Now, he really ought to ask for a raise.
Да, ну, наверх, вниз. А вон было, ёлки-палки. Можно вернуться? Нет. Я пропустил сундук.
There was a sign. Take the goat across first. His hook didn't break.
А, нет, теперь убрались. У меня 3 только этих фиолетов. И
Ah, the road less traveled, thought Renato. How intriguing.
играя Зеноби, ты помнишь ту экспедицию, которую я направил именно под остров? Наверное, мы уже читали. Возобновляются эти периоды, в которых я повыше.
Once again, Renato was dead right. Or actually just dead.
Быстро смотри. Ну ладно.
Slippy's hit, he thought. Is a very cool sword, thought Renato. No, seriously. He couldn't feel his paw anymore.
Отлично.
What was the point of this gate? Did they think no one would notice the lever? The Iblis Stone, silenced by the Skyripper's core, had given Renato enough power to challenge the Imperial fleet. But what Renato was seeking was inner peace. The rebellion was on the verge of extinction, but it would have to wait. There had to be something useful in these things, didn't there?
Ну, а ты кто?
At the end of the mountain path, he found the wise Calaveras in his workshop. Do fix souls or only artifacts? He asked the sage. Does your soul need fixing? Asked the sage. I've been killing a lot of ravens lately, he told the sage. You're a fox, said Calaveras. To kill birds is part of your nature. Take joy in it. I mean, I might as well worry about eating flies. Would you like a fly?
It was true. That's what he had forgotten. The joy. Now he was ready for the final battle. The Farfarer cut through the clouds. The air had never felt so sweet since he was a child.
There it was. The dreaded Imperial fleet. He could smell wet hemp ropes ahead, wood and tar, and ravens. Even the fleet smelt good, somehow. He was ready.
He was ready.
Renato had it all squared away in his head.
He would kill the Emperor. Isengrim III had begun well, but he had gone mad. He was trying to invoke the lost gods by means of dark, blasphemous rituals. That was a secret, but the victims had spoken to Renato. The ghosts had spoken. No. No anger. Renato could not afford anger. It was empowering the crystal in his sword. That made him stronger, but it clouded his mind. He would not be a hero. A hero strives. Renato would just be one with everything. The Emperor would die, and the wheel would turn, and all would be restored without rancor, without sorrow, without pain.
Так, самоцвет. Уровень 2. Вашими ударами донос. Давайте это поставим. Да. Это. Процент редкой добычи, это не так уж и много. Щиты обезвреживать так вот.
The mysterious sword from the east made you so fast you could catch a fly with your chopsticks. If that's what you really wanted.
Первая фиолетовая дверь. Ни с кем не бьемся.
He sensed the jewel's power. He had a feeling they were going to be great friends.
Блин, а куда их всех су? Вот 3 дырочки.
He was sort of yanking his own chain, wasn't he?
But the more he thought about it, and he had so much more time to think about it now that he was not worrying about the battle, killing the Emperor would not change anything. Another would take his place. Perhaps Zenobia. Perhaps the Speaker of the Rebel Council, and power would corrupt them too, and death would make grief, and grief would lead to hatred. He must lead by example. Reject the violence. Reject the desire to create violence. But how?
Война приносит еще одну войну.
Oh, they really ought to put a railing on this thing, he thought. Soon he'd confront the Emperor. Funny that this whole war had come about because the Emperor feared death. Now it was coming for him. There was some sort of lesson there, wasn't there?
Щиты мне теперь не проблема.
Finally, he came to the Emperor's ship. The path behind him was strewn with dead ravens. The path to enlightenment. His mistake, he realized, was trying to change the world. The world would spin and the wheel would revolve whether he strove against it or not. What he had to do was nothing. He had attained enlightenment. He sat down, adopted a full lotus position, and began to meditate. And all around him, the warriors stopped fighting too. They knew. They could feel his enlightenment.
Oh.
They gave up fighting, dropped their weapons, and became his disciples. No, just kidding. The nearest raven stabbed him with a sword and then chopped off his head. I might not have thought this through properly. Thought Renado's head as it rolled around the deck
И тут он
and died.
Жесть.
And just like that, he was alive again, and back on the Farfarer, still fleeing burning Ubar. The book was still open before him. So, the book was a portal. It took you to the future, when your destinies would branch. He had failed and died 3 times, but he'd learned another true thing. The Iblis Stone was evil. It would try to corrupt anyone who used it. But he was starting to feel like he was getting the hang of this. There was a way through to victory. He could feel it. He just had to keep running the Path of Destinies. With that, the book fluttered back to the beginning, and he fell into it. The clouds parted over the Isles of Boreas. It was time to choose. The rebellion was in trouble. Ravens were scouting for the secret rebel base. They needed a game changer. Pieces of the Sky Ripper had surfaced. Or so a scholar in the mountains had told him. Surely the weapon that banished the lost gods could defeat the Emperor. Also, a temple had risen out of empty desert. The Iblis Stone was hidden there. It was a dangerous artifact. It could corrupt its user into a bloodthirsty monster. Maybe he could find a way to use it, to take its power without surrendering to its wickedness. And also, his old friend Lupino needed rescuing. Of course, Renato had a pretty strong suspicion that Lupino had betrayed the rebellion. But could Renato really leave an old friend to the Ravens?
Короче, надо было сразу по неборезу идти. Хотя, мне кажется, и тут тоже нас бы убили. Ладно, на этом эту серию закончим. Всем спасибо, кто смотрел. Подписывайтесь на канал. Пока-пока.